Part 1, Daydreams and Passions. This is the first movement and the one that's on the A Level syllabus for those of you studying it. The author imagines that a young musician affiliated by the sickness of spirit, which a famous writer has called the vagueness of passions, sees for the first time a woman who unites all the charms of the ideal person his imagination was dreaming of and falls desperately in love with her. By a strange anomaly, the beloved image never presents itself to the artist's mind without being associated with a musical idea, in which he recognises a certain quality of passion, but endowed with the nobility and shyness which he credits to the object of his love. His melodic image and its model keep haunting him ceaselessly, like a double idée fixe. This explains the constant recurrence in all the movements of the symphony of the melody which launches the first allegro, the transitions from this state of dreamy melancholy, interrupted by occasional upsurges of aimless joy, to delirious passion, with its outbursts of fury and jealousy, its returns of tenderness, its tears, its religious consolations. All this forms the subject of the first movement. Does this sound familiar? It does indeed. So this first movement was indeed written about him falling in love with Harriet Smithson. He has also tied in the idea of music, so the two most important things in Berlioz's life when he was writing the symphony were his obsession with Smithson and music. What we have here in particular is he says, the melodic image and its model keep haunting him ceaselessly like a double idée fixe. Now this is an important term, and idée fixe is French for fixed idea. So this is effectively a leitmotif, an early version of a leitmotif which is much longer. It's a fixed melody that doesn't change or develop, it just keeps hammering and hammering at you, as were the thoughts of Smithson in his mind. The music flurries with many, many emotions, as did his heart upon stalking dear Smithson. We now move on to part 2. This is much shorter in its description. However, things start to get a bit hairy around here if the obsessive stalking was not hairy enough. Part 2, a ball. The artist finds himself in the most diverse situations in life. In the tumult of a festive party, in the peaceful contemplation of the beautiful sights of nature, yet everywhere, whether in town or in the countryside, the beloved image keeps haunting him and throws his spirit into confusion. So, this is the part where Berlioz starts to get jealous, and he is confused, because naturally in life, he is confused at the fact that Smithson doesn't like him back and will just plain out refuse to meet him or answer any of his letters, no matter how many he sent. She should probably join him over there. So it doesn't matter what's happening. It's like one of those scenes in a movie, like where the character's really paranoid and they're in a crowded room and they turn and they think they see that person and then you go away. That's effectively what's happening. However, it gets to the point, which is not mentioned in his program note, it kind of happens later, is that during this ball he does see Smithson, but he sees her dancing with somebody else. So this brings a jealous element into the plot. The plot thickens. Part 3, scene in the countryside. One evening in the countryside he hears two shepherds in the distance dialoguing with their rons de vanche. This pastoral duet, the setting, the gentle rustling of the trees in the wind, some causes for hope that he has recently conceived, all conspire to restore to his heart an unaccustomed feeling of calm, and to give to his thoughts a happier colouring. He broods on his loneliness, and hopes that soon he will no longer be on his own. But what if she betrayed him? The mingled hope of fear, these ideas of happiness disturbed by dark premonitions, form the subject of the adagio. At the end, one of the shepherds resumes his rons de vanche, the other one no longer answers. Distant sound of thunder, solitude, silence. So this is when the jealousy really comes into play. It was kind of hinted at the ball, but he's like, oh yeah, but that wasn't her. But now he's thinking, but what if it was her? What if I wasn't daydreaming? Why was he daydreaming? If you haven't already twigged, he's dreaming because he's on drugs. Opium, to be precise. But yes, he's kind of hallucinating. Things are going around in his mind like a merry-go-round because he's high. He was quite literally high when he wrote this about him being high. So it gets really quite trippy. It's from this point onwards with the shepherds that it gets trippy. The shepherds are symbolising Berlioz and Smithson in that at the start of the movement they're talking together, they're just kind of chattering in the background whilst he's kind of brooding in the countryside. And then he starts to get all paranoid that she's cheated on him despite the fact they weren't together in the first place. Notice how the kind of lack of reciprocation of love's come in here. And then it comes full circle back to the shepherds, and one of them is talking but the other one is not answering. So he's seeing this behaviour mirrored in not only his non-existent relationship with her, but elsewhere around him. Here we get to the point where it is very bluntly jerky and trippy. Part 4. March of the Scaffold. Convinced that his love is spurned, the artist poisons himself with opium. The dose of narcotic, while too weak to cause his death, plunges him into a heavy sleep, accompanied by the strangest of visions. His dreams that he has killed his beloved, that he is condemned, led to the scaffold and is witnessing his own execution. The procession advances to the sound of the march that is sometimes sombre and wild, and sometimes brilliant and solemn, in which all dull sound of heavy footsteps follows without transition the loudest outbursts. At the end of the march, the first 4 bars of the Idée fixe reappear like a final thought of love, interrupted by the fatal blow. So, he's now so high on drugs, he's dreamt that he got high and killed Smithson. And for that he gets the death penalty, and then spends the rest of the movement whilst the death march is happening, witnessing his own execution, because remember, he's still tripping here. So he's like, I'm watching my own death because I killed Smithson, who, once again, he hadn't actually met. So, pretty sure you're safe, man. And notice how the Idée fixe reappears, that little theme of love that we had in the first movement comes back just as a harking of, I did it out of love, which he clearly didn't. Clearly had relationship issues, let's just put that out there. Part 5, this is the final part of the symphony. There are 5 movements. Here he's called them parts, or they've translated it as parts. And this final bit is called Dream of a Witch's Sabbath. He sees himself at a witch's sabbath, in the midst of the hideous gathering of shades, sorcerers and monsters of every kind who have come together for his funeral. Strange sounds, groans, outbursts of laughter, distant shouts which seem to be answered by more shouts. The beloved melody appears once more, but has now lost its noble and shy character. It is now no more than a vulgar dance tune, trivial and grotesque. It is she who is coming to the Sabbath, roar of delight at her arrival. She joins the diabolical. The funeral knell tolls, burlesque parody of the Dies Irae, the dance of the witches. The dance of the witches combined with the Dies Irae. So, at this point, there is some kind of evil witches ceremony. We're going to go with that. This is kind of taking place at his funeral. So now he's witnessing his own funeral, which is full of monsters and witches, and not only that, but Smithson comes back from the dead to torture him, basically, and to laugh at him. So she's kind of having the last laugh, which is true in real life because, well, apart from the bit where he went off with someone else, it was true at their relationship at the time when he was writing this, in that she did indeed have the last laugh because she would not even meet him, yet he clearly had so many feelings for her. Feelings which I think were maybe enhanced a wee bit too much, but you know what, it's fine, never mind. An interesting thing, which I'm sure somebody must have thought before, is whether if Berlioz was not high, whether the symphony would have been the same. It's very interesting. I wonder whether he literally dreamt this and then put it in a symphony, or whether he it was a bit of both. It's probably realistically a little bit of both, in that he had some trippy dreams about her, but then he's kind of created a plot for it, and that is the plot of the symphony, as well as the plot of their romance at the time. His romance. She's not bothered until she realises he has loads of famous friends. Interestingly, musically, it's not a death march, because it can't be, because the fourth movement was the death march. So you've got this, crazy funeral death ceremony, but then you've got the Dies Irae theme in there as well, which is a little segment of the Requiem, which is a death mass. So he has acknowledged, that it is, yes, they are dead, and this is your funeral, which is when you would play or sing a requiem. So he's got the little bit of the famous bit, the big bit, the Dies Irae, in that, as well as the havoc of him being emotionally tortured for eternity. Hope you enjoyed this story. It's a bit of a trippy story, and I hope that this has enlightened you, particularly if you're doing the A-level class, or yeah, which I know a few of you are, so hope that helps. It's basically he just got really high about a girl that didn't like him back. It's very interesting and very strange. Once again, please do not feel that in order to become a great artist you need to take drugs. You don't. It's not good. This is Berlioz. Don't be like Berlioz. If you have any concerns about drugs, please talk to a trusted adult and ask any questions or things there. Otherwise, just stay away and laugh at Berlioz's peculiar life. We will see you next week.